Hey everyone, this is Tushar. Welcome back to the series on system design for humans. It's that time of the year again where we all collectively hallucinate. We call it New Year's resolutions. We buy new shoes, we buy our Apple watches, we download all the apps, we write down our goals neatly as if the act of writing will bend reality. And for a brief moment, it feels incredible. A new vision, a new life, a reset. There is a surge of dopamine, not from doing the thing, but purely from visualization, imagining what it would be to do that thing. But the data for New Year's resolutions are brutal. By Feb 15th, about 91% of these resolutions are dead. And just like I spoke about in the last video, the problem is not that we are weak. It's not even about the discipline. It's not that we didn't want it badly enough. The problem is that the architecture is wrong. Before we talk about better systems, there's something more fundamental that we need to understand. Why change itself is so goddamn hard. Not that it's hard to maintain, it's hard to even begin. The answer is not discipline, it's biology. Humans are not optimized for improvement. We are optimized for stability. For early humans, stability was not a preference, it was survival. If you were part of a group and that group knew exactly where the food source was and where it appeared every season, it was easier to live. The same paths, the same timing, and the same shelters is where you found the food. Experimentations did happen here and there. Some people tried new routes, some people tried new tools, but most of these experiments failed, and those people might have died. But a few experiments worked, and that probably created agriculture. And when they worked, they stopped becoming experiments and became a new normal. And that's how evolution actually works. A rare deviation followed by prolonged periods of stability. So the brain learns a bias. It's to default towards predictability, resist what is uncertain, and that bias is still running in many of us. Your brain's primary job is not to make you better, it's to keep you predictable. Every reported behavior collapses into an internal model. This is who I am and this is how my day goes. And once that model stabilizes, our nervous system defends it. So when we try to change or tweak our behavior, for example, we try to wake up early, or we try a new form of workout, or try to work with focus, you're not just changing the habit, you're threatening an identity that the brain has already invested in. And this shows up as prediction error. Your brain predicts a particular future and you're forcing another. This mismatch creates stress. It's not motivation. The brain interprets this stress as a risk and it pulls you to the baseline again. And this is inertia. It's not laziness. You can push for days, maybe weeks, maybe a month and a half, but unless the system starts seeing evidence that someone like me does this now, the old identity is going to win. I'll do a full video on identity at some point because it's a much deeper topic that needs its own video. For now, hold on to this idea. Change does not start with effort. It starts with experiments small enough to survive failure and systems that turn successful experiments into the new normal. That's what we're trying to achieve. Now let's talk about resolutions. Most people treat resolutions like a game of archery. You pick a target and you shoot your arrow. The arrow travels and hits a target. This is a ballistic system. Once the arrow leaves the bow, you have zero control over it. It's left to the wind. It's left to the skill of the archer, and you could very likely miss the target. Say you've set a goal of getting a six-pack abs or something, and then say your workload increases or a family issue shows up and you miss a bunch of workouts. Since your identity is not of someone who works out every day, you miss the target and you crash. And most people, after repeated failed attempts on these resolutions, consider this failure as a normal part of their life. It becomes a natural phenomenon. And when this happens, you're no longer embarrassed when your resolutions start failing and you stop trying. And that's when you don't just fail, you crash. And most people, after a repeated set of failures, consider that this failure of resolutions is just a new normal. And you stop trying. You stop feeling ashamed of failing. That's when you just give up on the dream or on the goal. So I wanted to propose a different system. I don't want to build a new arrow. I don't want to build a new bow and arrow system. I want to build a guided missile system. A guided missile does not depend on a perfect launch or on the skill of the archer. And it's of course most of the time. But it has something that a bow and arrow does not, a feedback loop. It continuously measures drift and it continuously course corrects. Missing the target is not a failure state, it is expected behavior. In systems engineering, we call this observability, and this is where most personal systems fail. We treat our lives like a black hole. We pour all our effort into it and we expect some results to come out. And we feel exhausted, unmotivated, and scattered, and we have no idea why we failed. And the laziest explanation would be that I didn't try harder, so I need to put in more effort and try harder next time. But trying harder is not a strategy. It's just burning more fuel or putting more fuel into a broken engine. And this is the difference between monitoring and observability. Monitoring says, did I go to the gym today? Yes or no? That's a lagging indicator. By the time you're asking it, the failure has already happened. Observability asks something much more uncomfortable. What was the system state before I skipped the gym? Was it sleep debt from yesterday? Was I too tired? Did I have a call today? Did I postpone something that led me to skip the gym? Was it an unplanned decision? The unplanned decision fatigue probably started at noon, and that information lives in the context. So us skipping gym at 9 p.m., the seeds for it started at noon itself, and probably we don't realize that. In the age of AI, context is everything, and context is the difference between noise and signal, between punishment and calibration. If you understand the context, you do not need willpower anymore. You need adjustments, course corrections. A GPS system in your phone does not shame you when you take a wrong turn. It just takes the current reality as an input and adjusts the route from there. So once you've set a destination, regardless of where you're going, it always tries to adjust the route based on the current location. It's not going to replay your mistake. You may have to go around a few blocks extra. You might miss a turn. It just says recalculating and plots a new path. So how do we build a personal GPS without turning our life into a spreadsheet hell? Because here's the constraint that most productivity systems ignore. The moment the friction of tracking becomes higher than the motivation to track, the system collapses. So the solution has to be effortless. We need to lower the friction as much as possible so that we are still motivated to pursue it. So this is the idea that I'm trying to experiment this year. I'm not forcing my workouts. I'm not forcing a diet. I'm not forcing consistency. The only thing that I'm forcing is a very, very minimal effort of keeping a log or a journal. Call it a flight recorder. Every night for about 30 seconds or a minute, I try to reflect on what happened today. I record a voice note or a text note. No structure, no templates. Mention your success and failures of the day, and if you drifted away from your goals or did you stick to your goals. No judgment at all. There is no scoring. Just talk to the system. Give it as much context about the day as possible. I felt heavy today. I was stuck in a late meeting. You might have had genuine reasons to do that. Maybe a friend showed up, or maybe you slept late, maybe you doom scrolled and didn't want to think. And that's it. A raw, unfiltered, messy context. And the important thing is not to judge yourself for failure. I'm not trying to fix the day. It's just capturing the data. That's it. It's as simple as that. And this is where modern AI stacks become very helpful. What I'm trying to build right now is an automation pipeline using any 10 LLM and treat these voice notes or text notes as input, as telemetry, and it runs quietly in the background. There are no dashboards or anything, no daily grades. It just takes these inputs every day. At the end of a week, it will churn this data, try to take out patterns from it, and give a diagnosis on what happened. It detects the pattern so that we don't have to go through the draining process of analyzing everything we did through the week. And that might cause emotional strain. And the analysis is done by the AI, and it suggests a patch, not a transformation, but a slight parameter change on what you could improve. And our brain does the rest. That's the shift. You're no longer fighting yourself, or you're no longer negotiating with motivation. You're just submitting the data, and the reflection happens with the help of this automation system. This is observability applied inward. And something subtle changes psychologically when we do this. Failure stops becoming moral. It's not a character trait anymore. It becomes mechanical. Okay, this is something that I'm doing every day, every week, that I'm not realizing. You don't ask what is wrong with me. You can ask what is the condition that is making me do this? How can I change the condition around me? You ask what conditions changed. That single shift can keep your shame signal alive. It is not destructive. It is purely information, and you remove the emotional aspect out of it. The reason why ballistic systems, where you set a goal and push towards that goal, fails 91% of the time, because it assumes a perfect launch. But we are imperfect humans. Those systems punish drift. In this system, a drift is a feature, not a bug. So it assumes that you're going to take the wrong path. It just captures it silently and gives you tiny course corrections. And over time, something interesting happens. You stop hallucinating about who you should be, and you start cooperating with who you actually are. And this cooperation compounds over time. And compounding works like magic in shifting identity. Now, waking up at 6 a.m. is just who I am. It's not something that I'm trying. You start saying statements like, I am a runner, rather than saying, I try to run every day. So the idea is to shift your identity and to convert these goals into I am statements. Once I build this automation pipeline, I will try to open source it once it stabilizes. I want it to be so easy that the reflection costs almost zero effort. It's not as hard as going to the gym or doing focused work. It's just talking to a system and try to keep it as effortless as possible. So we are trying to solve this issue of resolutions without discipline or motivation using this new kind of a system. So once you set your goals for this year, try to build a flight recorder. If not for a AI automated pipeline, you can just write down a journal and go through it weekly and try to identify the patterns yourself. Stop trying to be the bow and arrow. You're not perfect. Not all of us are expert archers. We need to be more like guided missiles and assume that we are going to fail on certain days and knows how to correct itself. So if you're interested in such a system, on the technical aspects of the how the pipeline would work, let me know in the comments. I'll post that as well, probably in a separate channel, since it would be more of a technical discussion. Until then, let me know your New Year's resolutions for this year and try to keep the feedback loop alive. I'll try to discuss about identity in the next video, which will be very interesting. Thank you.